Hello everyone. So in the last session we have discussed part A and unit 1. So in this session we are going to discuss from unit 2, 3 and 4 questions. So in unit 2 the first question is Allee's effect. So Allee's effect, it is nothing but the density dependence. What happens in the population? So they are mainly correlated between the population densities and individual fitness. So if the organism is survival for the fittest, then only it will survive in the population. So that is explained in Allee's effect. So next question was edge effect and ecotone. So edge effect, it refers to two different types of habitats where it connects. For example, a river and land. So it is a edge effect. So you are having a water ecosystem as well as land ecosystem. Then near to that maximum number of animals will be present. That is why the resources will be more. So then it is called as edge effect. Then what is ecotone? So ecotone is nothing but the transition area between two biological community. So as I was explained in previous session, the wildlife corridors, even ecotone can be a wildlife corridor. So it may be a narrow or a wide. So for example, whenever I was telling about wildlife sanctuaries connecting between a corridor, so usually corridors will be narrower, not so wide, because the animals want to migrate from one place to another place. So despite of the food and everything, so the ecotone will be formed and wildlife corridors are also present. Next, the various types of natural ecosystem. So there are many different types of natural ecosystems like rainforest, then temperate forest, tundra regions, desert, grasslands and temperate forest lands, tropical forest lands, evergreen forests, and we need to write a note on the man-made ecosystem, or it is also called as engineered ecosystem. So in man-made ecosystem, so usually whenever you come across gardens, aquariums, then zoo, then some of the protected areas or agriculture lands, so these all comes under the man-made ecosystem, or also they are also called as engineered ecosystem. So usually to confuse you, they may ask these terms. So you already know man-made ecosystem, but when they ask the engineered ecosystem, you may get confused. So please note down the alternate terms. So man-made ecosystem is also called as engineered ecosystems. Next, consumers in pond ecosystem. So whenever you are studying about one ecosystem, obviously there will be primary consumers, secondary consumers, then tertiary consumers, along with the producers and decomposers. So in this pond ecosystem, as you can see in this diagram, so primary consumers will be the small insects and all which are eating from the producers, like the green plants or the phytoplanktons. Then secondary consumers will be the small fishes which consume on that smaller insects. And then the tertiary consumers will be the large animals, like maybe a larger fish or a tortoise or maybe a crocodile inside. When it is considered as a pond, then you will be having larger fishes, and some of the reptiles like snakes and all, they come under tertiary consumers. So this is how the consumers of pond ecosystem. You need to draw a schematic representation along with the theory written. Okay, then ecological niche. So as you have studied Darwin finches, these Darwin finches occupy different niches in particular tree. So some finches, they are adapted at the upper portion of a plant, some are near to the ground, some are in the middle of the branches. So that is called as a niche. So it is a position of a species within the ecosystem. So that is how we call them as a ecological niche. Then ecological pyramids. So these you are studying from your lower classes, from your 10th standard in your lower PU level. And also here also you need to know about ecological pyramids. Mainly there are of different types: pyramid of energy, pyramid of number, pyramid of consuming, and different types. So these are nothing but the graphical representation. So they relate between different organisms in a ecosystem. For example, in one ecosystem you are having all the different types of consumers like primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. So like that. So when you consider a tree, for example, whole tree is a producer actually, because it produces a food for that. And primary consumers may be a small insects like ants and butterflies and all. But when coming to secondary consumers, you will be having birds which feed on those insects and different types of smaller animals. And tertiary consumers may be the snakes which feed upon birds, or larger mammals like cat and all, they come and feed on that. So these all come in pyramid of energy. So usually the primary producers will be having more energy because it gives energy for maximum people, and slowly it decreases. And also the pyramid of number, the producers will be, when you take one ecosystem, the producers are maximum, then comes the primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. Coming to unit 3, you are having tsunami. So it is nothing but the disturbance in wave pattern that causes the wave in the sea or ocean, which disturbance, and there may be a volcanic eruption, then submarine landslides, and the coastal rock falling, and due to that tsunami will be occurring. So what happens that time? Large volume of water usually is displaced from one region to the another region. Next, eutrophication. So eutrophication, you can see there are larger algal blooms like completely green patched lakes or pond. Why it happens usually? For example, now during rainy season, maximum amount of the soil or the sand particles, they are washed away by the rainwater and they get into the pond. So what happens? The maximum amount of the nutrients which are present in soil, they get deposited into the pond. So then there will be excessive richness of nutrients inside the lake. So that is how the eutrophication happens. So usually eutrophication is good, and if it is over eutrophication, then it will lead to algal blooming. So eutrophication. Then they have asked about nitrogen cycle. So these sedimentary cycles are very important. Any cycles can be asked in any part of the unit 3. So nitrogen cycle, as you know, the atmospheric nitrogen is fixed by different types like industrialization or by the animals, or even the plants produce amount of nitrogen, and even different types of bacteria, nitrogen fixing bacteria. There are different terminologies like ammonification, denitrification, nitrification, and there are some bacteria which fix nitrogen in the soil also. So we call them nitrogen fixing bacteria. And there are root nodules which take up the nitrogen for the growth of the plant. So once you know the cycle of nitrogen, then you can explain in your own words. Then coming to 7th question, that is biomagnification. So biomagnification, it is also called as bioamplification or biological magnification. It is a concentration. So usually what happens, then the concentration of toxic or the pesticides inside the tissue of an animal. For example, now if you take agriculture land, the excess amount of water which you are giving to the agriculture land, it is washed away by the soil near to the soil, and it get deposited into a small pond. So what happens, you are spraying pesticides and different types of insecticides, so that will get mixed in water and it enters into the pond. So there are small organisms like fishes and all. So once they are living in that water, then what happens, the toxic or pesticides, they get accumulated inside their tissue. So now that fishes is consumed by us or a larger animal. then even that toxic property or the toxicants will be deposited in our tissues. That is how the biomagnification takes place in our food chain. So usually the excessively higher level of food chain. Then you are having sulfur cycle. So same as the nitrogen cycles, here also you need to study about how the sulfides in water or due to the acid rain, how the sulfur is entering into our ecosystem, and the sulfur dioxide gases which they are released by different industries or by the vehicles or some of the decomposition during the waste, that time it is released, and due to the iron sulfide sedimentation taking place, even that time the H2S is released, and later from the fossil fuels or even microorganisms also release some sort of sulfur given they are get depositing into the earth crust. So this is how the sedimentation, the cycle takes place. So know the correct cycle, then you need to explain it in your own words. Okay, coming to environmental pollution. So it is a general topic. So you can subdivide into many different types like air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, noise pollution, radioactive pollution, e-pollution. Then you need to write in different parts like how it is caused, what are the prevention, and what are the remedy measures we can take. So this is how the environmental pollution you can write for maximum, you can write for this. So they will be asking for this as 7-mark questions. Then coming to last unit, that is unit 4. So first question is about red data book. So red data book is nothing but it is a book which is having all the list of threatened species like endangered and endangered, then vulnerable, rare, extinct. So it consists of the documentation of both plants and animals. Then wildlife of tropical rainforest. So tropical rainforest are evergreen forest. So maximum amount of the animals will be present like mountain gorilla, blue morph butterflies, okapi, then tree-toed sloth jogger, then that should be tree-toed sloth and jogger, then scarlet macaw, poison dart frog, black howler monkey, and you are having different types of snakes like anacondas, vipers. The Nearctic region. So when you see the Nearctic region, you should know it comes in the Northern America. So what are the regions? See, when you see the map, you can make out the weather condition. There are dry seasons, there are dry winters, and there are dry summers also. Along with that, you are having thick covering of snow regions also. And along with that, what are the mammals? So usually large portion of these of wide range, they are having rabbits, squirrels, rats, dog, and different types of bats and cats, and also honey badger, sea otters. So usually this type of organisms, they are living in the Nearctic region. Coming to the last question, that is 9th question, and that under that A, that is tiger reserve. So India is highly populated with the tiger among the world, and we are having 70% of the population of the worldwide, and 50 tiger reserves we are having in India, which was given by NTCA, that is National Tiger Conservation Authority. And among that 2006 we were having 1411 tigers, and in 2010 we drastically increased, and later in 2014 we are having 2969, and our Karnataka plays very important role. So we are the highest in having the tigers, and globally there are around 3890 overall. Next, the human wildlife conflict and hunting. So these two are the important correlated concepts. Like when the hunting takes place, then slowly the human conflict also will increase with the wildlife. So hunting, you know, it is nothing but a practice of seeking or purposing, capturing or also killing a wildlife animal. Then what happens? For its meat or recreation, or maybe for different types of exertions like transportation, or maybe, you know, like pet trading for that purpose. And human wildlife conflict, it is nothing but when a animal pose directly, or you can see now, in last week, in last during the COVID-19 time, the lockdown, many different animals has come out on roads, many different types of birds, they were on the roads. So that is nothing but the human wildlife conflict. So when there is no uh, disturbance, then the disturbance of humans, then wildlife animals also, they tend to come out, or they tend to expand their habitat. So that is how the human wildlife conflict takes place. The last question, that is barriers of animal dispersal. So there are many different types of barriers: chemical, physical barrier, chemical barrier, and also the anthropogenic barriers. So usually the destruction of forest, it becomes a barrier for animals, or construction of a road in between the wildlife sanctuary, it is a type of barrier. Then construction of watchtowers in the forest, even that is a barrier. Or maybe the farmland within the wildlife sanctuary, even that is a barrier. So these are the different types of barrier which disturbs wildlife animals to survive. So this is about the question paper. Thank you.